It settled into the skin like a permanent layer of grit. Elara stood at the edge of the jagged pier, watching the gray Atlantic churn with a fury that felt personal. Her father, Silas, had always said the ocean was a living thing with a very long memory. Now Silas was gone, and the ocean seemed to be celebrating his absence with a particularly violent swell. She looked up at the lighthouse. It was a towering monolith of white stone, weathered in geometry of light and the language of the tides. He didn't want it automated, Miller. He said a machine can't see the nuance of a fog bank. A machine doesn't know when a ship is struggling just by the sound of its horn. The glass of a lantern room caught the dying light of the afternoon sun, flashing like a warning for the tie. He doesn't hesitate to beg struggling with. "I'm not ready to leave," she whispered to the empty room, where she and Silas had shared 1,000 meals. The air still carried the faint, lingering scent of his pipe tobacco and the sharp, metallic tang of brass polish. On the table lay his logbook, a thick volume bound in cracked leather. She traced the gold leaf lettering on the cover with her thumb, before finally opening it to the last entry. March 14th, it read in a shaky, elegant script. "I'm not ready to leave," she whispered to the empty room. "That was out there, Grazes. They're terrified of the problems. Terror for Poles, Verrier built an icefield, cheers and merry things. Mazed at Bowman Graze to the tents of the lantern room." A high-pitched wail that sounded like a mourning woman. Elara was in the engine room, struggling with the backup generator. "Cam on, you alive." The vibration shuddered through the floor, a reassuring heartbeat. Above her, she heard the hum of the motor that rotated the lens. "Where are you?" she whispered, her eyes squinting against the glare, a Tenetherite manual spotlight, an old carbon arc lamp that could be directed like a searchlight. It was ancient, temperamental, and required constant adjustment. She ran to the storage locker and hauled the heavy apparatus to the seaward window. Her hands shook as she fumbled with the connections. Think they're over the Narians is pining at Spikil is mong. And year tonight mian, and Stasiv Farmia. The conceptoration. "You're trying," the voice yelled back. "The waves are too high." Her arms ached with a dull, throbbing pain, and her eyes were raw from the salt and the intensity of the glare. Every time the Sarah Jane disappeared behind a swell, her heart stopped. Every time it reappeared, she adjusted the angle, leading them inch by agonizing inch away from the white water of the shoals. The ocean had retreated into a deceptive calm. It surfaced like hammered silver under a pale sun. Elara was on the pier when Miller's boat arrived. He wasn't alone. 2 men in Coast Guard uniforms stood on the deck, crates of electronic equipment. Miller hopped onto the pier, looking at Elara with a strange expression. Word traveled fast last night. The boys on the Sarah Jane couldn't stop talking about the light that wouldn't let go of them. One of the Coast Guard officers, a Lilte, was transmain in face. "Let's hear them tell things," half Sumerian saying. And he rust tail in the feast, them off times probaling as the dis things and I tend in the base. If she turned to walk back up the path toward the cottage, she felt a sense of peace. She wasn't just silent.